Welcome to Home's Room. Just like Homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin. Welcome to Home's Room. Sometimes mythological things don't need proof to be believed in. Sometimes all that's needed is you believe in the possibility. Our guest today embodies support and a strong belief in everything being possible. Some may know her as Uniscorn, but to most, she's simply Kate. Welcome, Kate. Good to have you here.
Hey, Matt. Thank you so much for having me. This is really an honor, and I'm really flattered to be here. And I hope we get to talk about some neat stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. So on that note, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Um, I am the daughter of two English teachers who honestly believed that anything was possible for people. So I definitely picked that up. They were cheerleaders for their students, and so having that sort of support and seeing that sort of support and seeing the difference that it made in so many people's lives, it like sort of comes naturally to want to encourage people, I guess. Um, from there, I grew up. Sorry, that was silly. Grew up and got an English degree and moved into journalism. And I spent a good 20 years in journalism, 2025. And one of the cool things about it is that it sounds really straightforward, but there's always a place to sneak in some creativity because whether you're writing or designing or taking pictures, you can sneak things in. And like, I still have things that I'm proud of from my newspaper days. Like, we had something where like the Humane Society was, doing, it's going to be kind of a dirty joke. It's a play on words. It was a picture of three animals, and for like their thing, we had to write little headlines for it. Usually it was just one animal, but this one was three. And so the headline that I wrote for it was Menagerie à Trois. And so, um, and so, but from there, now I work on writing training manuals for people who are going to sell insurance. They have to get licensed. And there's room for creativity there too, because we translate like state laws and state statutes into normal language so that students can learn what's going on. Because anyone who works
You mean that
with
stuff
stuff
doesn't
like
just
that,
make sense? You have to get creative to make it make sense?
you know what? You would be surprised how many hithertos and whatnots and however many show up. And yeah, it makes you realize just how confusing the language can be. But
I can't even imagine.
no, it talks anyone you know who works in law probably is like, yeah, very confusing.
Um,
But
yeah, but it sounds like it's one of those jobs that like it's as fun as you make it kind of thing. Is that, would you think?
yeah, there really are lots of things. And when you find a concept that maybe a student isn't getting, or that a client isn't getting, and that you have been working with them to try to understand what they don't understand, and then being able to come up with an idea, come up with a concept or an example that makes it click for them, and so it's sort of fun, sort of noodling about and seeing uh, how we can make something make sense. And so
That's
sometimes it does involve like the out of the box thinking,
yeah.
you know.
That it sounds like one of those things that like you could you have the potential, like you're on the other side of that thing that could either make somebody's day really awful and miserable, or
Yeah,
you can make it slightly better. And it's like, okay, this one, whoever wrote this thing, like, I like you because I can understand this. This is better than like, yeah, I get it. I get
yeah,
that.
yeah. It's sort of, yeah. it's accessing a different part of the brain definitely than like
Yeah.
the straightforward ABC. Sometimes you have to
Yeah.
go from A to Q to make it make sense.
Yeah, the creative mind. And anybody out there listening, if you wanted to ever find an analogy that is the creative mind, A to Q is absolutely the create where it's like, I got to do this, but I need it to be that. How do I get it without it? And you just gotta jump.
It's fascinating because like so many times, like just wherever people will say, okay, you have to do A, then B, then C, then D. But for a lot of people, they want to focus on like on Q and how to
Yeah.
get there themselves.
Yeah.
And that's like so important. Like like I don't know if it's true or not, but one of the rumors is that Eddie Van Halen never took guitar lessons, and that's why he
Yeah.
was such a great guitarist, is because no one ever told him what you couldn't do. And
Yeah.
so he just like by noodling around and playing by himself, he never learned the rules. So it's just sort of cool. And like, the people who are self-taught artists,
Yeah. I like that.
all over the place.
Yeah. So for everybody at home, this is one of those, or wherever you are, I guess you might not be at home. You might be at work. You might be in the car, whatever it is. Um, this interview is a little bit different because we may have known each other, for quite a long time now, but because of the way we know each other, it's almost like superheroes that don't know their secret identities. So like we know a lot about each other, but we also don't know a lot about each other because of how we know each other. And I don't know if you feel like that's interesting, but I know I think that's interesting.
Well, like we've never really sat down and talked about this. Like it's one of those things where it's sort of like recognizes like we both
Yeah.
realize that we're creative forces and that we are lucky enough to be surrounded by the people who sort of help, you know,
Yeah.
boost that. But like we don't have to get into it because we both recognize that.
Yeah.
Does that make
That's
sense?
yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
We got another roller derby person here. So like we half of us don't have real names, and if you were to tell us to go find somebody in real life, it would take us 15 minutes just to remember what their real first name is, let alone what their last name is. They all
Oh
got a
God.
leg
Yeah.
up on me because I'm Holmes and everybody knows me as Holmes. So they usually just type it in, and it's spelled differently, not wrong, spelled differently than every other Holmes. So generally they can
Yeah.
find me. So, but yeah, I think, like I said, I think it's cool to learn about, that kind of thing because I know you as an uber creative, uber supportive person, but like
Yeah.
hearing, how you use that in your everyday thing and something that sounds like it could be really mundane and really like you
Dry.
said, yeah, but
Yeah.
like knowing you on that side and knowing that that's what you do like for the regular is just like you would have to make it fun because you're just such a ball of fun. So
we my coworker, I call him my work brother. He is also a creative person, like extraordinarily creative, and so it's hilarious that both of us are in this job that seems more cut and dried and technical writing and stuff like that.
yeah, I don't think I could ever do technical writing. I applied for technical writing jobs because I do write, but like I I sat there and I was like, do I want to go on this interview? And then I thought about it, and they sent over like a writing sample, like template thing that I was supposed to do. And I was like, nope, nope.
Yeah, I have so much respect for people who can do stuff like that because I can't. It's like I have so much respect for people who can do like landscape and nature photography. I cannot. I do not have the patience, the eye, the anything of it. I have a friend whose his passion is photographing lighthouses, and he will
Yeah.
travel like that's his hobby. Um, and he will check weather. He'll check sunrise, sunset, all sorts of things just to get that image, and it's beautiful. But I
Wow.
couldn't.
Yeah. um, so that brings me to my like kind of like my first question for you. You mentioned it a little bit. You are, dare I say, an amazing photographer. And
I try. Thank
uh,
you. Thank you.
I I would kind of, in my eyes, look at you as like kind of a local celebrity because you photograph extraordinarily well a lot of things that happen around the area in Kansas City and things like that, and a lot of people. And I would, kind of prop you up on that. You're a local celebrity and people have probably seen your work, and although you may be a faceless, they definitely know, your work, your brand, and all that kind of stuff. So, what are some of the most interesting things you've worked on? Like what interests you the most about your projects that you've done?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, I that's incredibly flattering, and thank you for all the kind words. Um, the I think favorite thing that I've worked on, I mean, honest to goodness, would be the derby photography because that's where I've grown the most. Uh,
Cool.
Definitely because, well, when I first started out, the bar was the bar was if it's in focus, I would work it.
Yeah.
And now I've sort of grown to like I want to make sure that a picture is telling a story or something like that,
Yeah.
or evoking an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's sort of also what I try to do in my off derby photography. And I think that one of my favorite things are actually working with kiddos because kiddos have no, they have no fear and they are genuine. And
Mm-hmm.
with adults, there's always you have to break down the seriousness and everything.
Yeah.
Um, and kiddos are just like, they don't care. And you can always catch
Mm-hmm.
the genuine, whatever they are feeling, it is right there. And adults, you sort of have to break out of things. Um, let's see. I'm trying to think of actually one of my favorite portraits that I've ever done. It's actually I've never been made public. It was for a friend who was just wanted a portrait, and I got the lighting just perfect, like uh, just perfect. Because lighting's always one of the things that I struggle with. Because when I first started, I was like, I'll just throw on all of the light that I have.
Yeah.
That's not I'm but that's also who I am. I'm an all or nothing. Like so it's like, oh, I've got lights. I've got to set them at the brightest they can possibly be, which is not what you should do. But
Yeah.
I I think one of my favorite things about like photography, and it's probably anything creative, is that there's nothing wrong. Like you might not get the results that you wanted, but you're not doing anything wrong,
Yeah.
you know? Like
There's like a simplistic beauty in the fact that you still caught a moment no matter what, and you
yeah,
you you still, that moment, that whatever it is caught in time. And
yeah.
there could be something about it. I think some of the, I by no means am I would I consider myself a photographer. I can take pictures and press buttons and whatnot, but some of the pictures that I've taken that have been really good generally come out of, well, I'll just take one more, and didn't
Yeah.
expect anything out of it.
Well, and that's one of, honest to goodness, that's one of the most amazing things. Like, I mean, I know your lovely bride is also a photographer. But what's interesting is that any, like, I think that really anyone can be a photographer or a writer or anything creative.
Thank you for saying that.
Well, because it's true. Because like I was actually thinking about that. Like, what you take pictures of isn't going to be my eye.
Hmm.
So as long as it's genuine to you, it meant something to you, you took a picture of it, it evoked an emotion, even
Yeah.
if it was just curiosity. And and that sort of goes back to there are no wrong answers in art because it's art. Like
Yeah.
your picture might not be a picture I took, but it's not my voice,
That's one of
you
those things
know?
that, uh, it's just like people that gatekeep art bug me to no end because like constructive criticism, which like meaning it's actually constructive. Hey, next time, you might, try this adjustment, or you might try and, hit this angle. You might try and do this. You
Yeah.
might adjust this thing to
Was
make your
that
work
was
better.
that your
That
intention?
yeah, like
Yeah.
that's good. But people that are just like, well, it was a bad picture, or well, your photography just isn't good because of XYZ. That's not constructive criticism. That's just you being a dick. Like,
Oh yeah. And there are definitely some pictures that like I'll include for clients or in derby things where I'm like, technically it is not the best picture, and I'm sure that people are looking at going, why did you put that in there? But for some reason I liked it enough to work it, and I'm going to put it in there because it was fun. It doesn't have to mean anything to anyone but me, you know.
yeah,
And so that's kind of fun when you get a
that's
hold of that feeling.
I love, you mentioned Courtney taking pictures, and she does weddings a lot. And one of the things that I love about doing weddings is we do two cameras, and a lot of times she's off with the bride, she's doing all that because that's obviously where like the action is happening. And I take the
Yeah,
second camera and I will go take candids, or I would go take pictures of, the people that are just there doing whatever and being cheese balls while they're waiting because they're bored, just trying to entertain themselves, or, kids running around with dogs, or, the groom doing his thing.
yeah,
And I love that because like you said, it's capturing moments regardless. And
yeah,
when we put those pictures together, it almost always seems like, you know, this level of like what you want to see in wedding pictures, and
yeah.
what the ones that they're going to post to Facebook or whatever, and the ones that they're going to go get
Where
framed.
they're like, that was our day.
Yeah.
That was our day. I'm really glad you
I,
captured that.
Yep. And then they see those other ones that, aren't technically as good, but they, like you said, they see them and they're like, this is a moment. And, depending on what's going on, if the bride didn't see it, if the groom didn't see it, and it's people that they didn't get a chance to like talk
Yeah,
to, that now I have this picture. Like I know one of my friends, I wish I could remember if it was a dad or a stepdad or something, but he couldn't stick around, or something happened where he wasn't there long. But I just happened to get a
yeah,
picture of him talking to people, and he was laughing, and they were just like, thank you so much, because he wasn't there.
yeah,
So like I didn't expect to get any pictures, but the one that like that, and it was just kind of like, okay, like I just was walking around snapping pictures.
yeah.
So like you said, I love that, you are preaching that message. And anybody out there that wants to dabble in photography, that wants to get into photography, take this badass photographer's advice and just go snap some stuff and believe in you captured something that caught
Well,
your eye.
yeah. Well, and that's one of those things is that like when people you mentioned gatekeeping, when people get snobby about equipment,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, you don't have the best camera, you don't have the whatever. That really doesn't matter. I mean, take your phone. I mean, if your phone's got a camera, it doesn't even have to be a good camera. I mean, the best, what is it, like the old saying, it's the saying, the best camera is the one you have.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. That
Yeah.
is, I would agree with that statement wholeheartedly. I know that, I covered social media and stuff like that, and you obviously, were on that grind with me during games, and, running around
Yeah.
trying to get these shots and do these things. And, I wanted to push myself to get good with just a phone, because it's the easiest thing right now. But
Oh,
also
yeah.
being able to switch back and forth, and, that grind is like a nightmare.
Yeah.
How you do it with a phone and your bag and, all your equipment. Like that's so much everything to keep track of for me. I would lose my mind.
Oh, yeah. No, I've definitely refined my process on that too. Cause yeah, remember I used to have to bring like my little red wagon, and
You did.
now I just can carry my tripod and stuff. It's a lot
Good.
of fun.
Good.
Yeah.
Um, what's your like favorite thing to shoot? Like just in general, it doesn't like what do you just like flat out, like if you got given the opportunity to go shoot what you wanted to shoot, how are you spending your day?
If I had my dream would has always been to be Annie Leibovitz because she like always seemed to capture people's personalities,
Hmm.
like in a way with like the lighting and the costumes, and she would could always seem to make a connection to her subjects. And so if I had like no holds barred, it would be to step into Annie Leibovitz's life and just
Yeah.
her stuff is just she has a handle on life that I wish I had. Like, and I know that she's had 50 years to to perfect it, you know. So maybe in 50 years I'll be at that. But
Well, like I
um,
said, everything is possible, right? That's
that
the
is
mantra.
that is completely accurate. Yeah, and it's just a matter of like yeah, playing around. That honestly is one of the hardest things. Is like making the time to play around with the creativity and like sort of
Hmm.
making sure that you can because like one of the things that I really want to get into a little bit more and that I've been playing with is like pencil and ink and watercolor. But you know, like with any hobby, there's a certain amount of time of like the setup and the
Yeah.
everything. So making the time and prioritizing it, and even like putting the little things into little chunks that I can fit in, you know.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, as you get older, I can only imagine it's the same for you. Like, obviously, I just started a podcast, so my plate wasn't full enough, and I jumped on to do something else. But I keep replacing one hobby with another, and this is just another on that list. But it always becomes that you get older, and you're like, I could slow down, or I want to try this. I want to do this. And you just jump
Yeah.
on it. And that's one of the things I've always appreciated about you is that anytime somebody picks up something new, you're like, oh, I've always wanted to try that. That's so cool. Or, oh, I was always interested in, this thing. That's so cool that you're doing it. And then it almost seems like it inspires you to maybe try something yourself, or to be more vocal about things that you've tried. And I love that.
Well, it's such a big world out there, and I I feel bad for people who either don't get the opportunity to explore it or who have been told that they shouldn't explore it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, we see memes about it all the time about how, you know, if you don't monetize your hobby, is it worth it?
Yeah.
You know, if you're not productive, is it worth it? And that honestly has been like a huge breakdown, you know, something that I've had to break down in myself because I would buy a bunch of craft supplies and then be worried that the thing that I put out the first time wasn't going to be perfect.
Hmm.
So I didn't use the things, or I tried it once and it wasn't perfect. And I just stopped doing it because I didn't want to waste the supplies.
Yeah.
And so, sort of like being okay with sucking at
Yeah.
first, or being okay with maybe you don't get from A to Q. Maybe you just get from A to D, but maybe the
Hmm.
next time you'll get from A to F. And so being okay with knowing that you're not going to make it from A to Q immediately and that you're going to have to find your way there. I don't know. That's really
Yeah.
hard. I'm very stubborn and not patient. And so,
So that's one of those things. I don't. I used to look up to him a lot, and he used to be one of my. Like, I don't. Want to, I didn't grow up with heroes, like I just didn't. But one of the people I used to look up to as like a builder, a fabricator, somebody that wanted to work with cars, work with bikes, work with anything. Jesse James was always like that guy because he was like the
yeah,
dude doing everything. And now he's his own thing that I don't care to like
yeah,
be like cool, keep doing the stuff that you're doing, but like I can't support your views specifically. I still appreciate your
yeah,
work, but like that's it. But he used to say, you know, he would never sacrifice his vision for money spent, time spent, whatever it is, because if it doesn't look how he wanted it to look, if it didn't come out how he wanted it to look, none of the rest of that matters. He was like, I could spend $300 on materials and if it looks like shit, it looks like shit. I'm gonna start over. And
Yeah.
I always love that because, as a metal worker, as somebody that builds things with metal quite often, if I mess with something and it just doesn't come out the way I want, I could sit there and be like, okay, well, I spent the money on the materials and this is all I got. Or I could just eat it and be like, this isn't my vision. I want to continue to work on it. And, to any artist out there that's, trying to work on something, that's trying to aspire to something, that's just like, like you said, that wants to go from A to Q. If you're not getting there, it's fine to not get there, but don't
Yeah.
sacrifice your vision just to be like, well, this is the best that I can do, and I don't I don't want to go any further because I'm not good enough yet. And that you
Yeah.
don't have to be
And
good
that,
enough right now.
right. And that is one of the hardest things to realize is that, especially, I mean, we are in a society now where we can compare ourselves easily to the greatest people doing
Yeah,
whatever we want to do.
absolutely.
I mean,
Shout out Instagram.
right? Like, I do my little whatevers, but I see stuff that Leonardo da Vinci did. I see,
Hmm.
or, not even that old timey, because of course people 40 years ago knew what that looked like, but I can see on TikTok people dancing better than I'll ever be able to dance.
Hmm.
On Instagram, people sharing foods that they've cooked that I will never be able to cook. People drawing a way that I will never be able to draw. And it would be so easy to say, I'm never going to be, I'm never going to be Meryl Streep, so I shouldn't even try acting. It would be so
Yeah.
easy to say something like that. But Meryl Streep wasn't born Meryl Streep. I mean, she was born Meryl Streep, but she
But
wasn't
yeah,
born Academy Award winning actress Meryl Streep. I'm sure she sucked at some point along the line. And so,
I, I'm not going to
it's
say that
okay to
that's a
stop.
bad example, but I don't know that Meryl Streep, like, I would love, so if somebody can
That is
find a
true. She
video or a
probably
clip
never did a
somewhere,
shitty
like,
performance, did she?
right, like, because I don't know, that one's I get
She
what you're
probably
saying.
was born Meryl Streep.
Like, I don't know.
Oh shit, Kate's coming for Meryl Streep.
uh
God, yeah, even on Stuck on You, she was good. Is that
yeah,
the
that's what I was
Ken
trying to think.
Boyne
I was like,
twins
man,
movie?
I don't remember. I'm trying to think
No,
of
she
even
has
stuff. I'm
been
like,
good at everything. That was a
no.
bad example.
But I get what you're saying. And I mean, that's kind of the thing is, when it comes down to like what you're able to accomplish, like I know for me, when I look at social media and I look at things like like I said, I do a lot of random things. So like I have different pages for my different hobbies because I keep them
Yeah,
separate. When I look at the things that other people do, I don't compare my work to what they do in the sense of like, oh, they're better than me. I look at it at how they did it. How did you achieve that thing? And what can I do to get the result that you got if I liked that part of it? So one of
yeah,
the things that I was trying to do, I do what's called Scale RC, and you'll get a kick out of this because it's a little thing that I build. So it's remote control cars, but the point is to make them look as real as possible, like absolutely as perfectly recreated as you
like
possibly can.
yeah.
And one of the things that I was trying to do is one guy that I follow, he does like Death Proof, like the Kurt Russell
Oh
like
my God, yeah,
grindhouse movie. Yeah. So he made a couple of trucks that look like stunt vehicles, but they're just amazing, and I love the work, everything about them. And I tried to build something similar to pay homage to it, and it just it's just not my style. And every
yeah,
like nothing, it was fighting me the whole way. And now it's just kind of like, do I want to continue that build or do I not? And it's been since robbed of parts and it's collecting dust and it's like, a quarter done because it's just not my style. And I realized in trying
yeah,
to do that like it's never been my style to copy somebody else. It's never been my style to like emulate somebody else. It's always been my style to do my own thing. And that's very much what you were saying, is like it's the same thing as snapping a shot because you felt it
yeah.
needed to be shot.
Well, and that's the thing is like as long as like, and this is going to sound like sort of zen, like whatever, but I really feel that people can tell if you're genuine
Hmm.
in what you're producing. because as long as something is true to your voice, it won't be wrong.
Yeah.
Like if you can stand behind it and say this is who I was, like even if your style changes or
Mm-hmm.
your moods change and everything, I mean, as long as you're genuine and doing something that you enjoy and that speaks to you, it it really, I mean, it's critic proof, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Like people can criticize it, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's
So,
genuine. It's
yeah.
like, sorry,
No, you're
I
good.
don't know how else to put
I was
it.
just
It's
gonna
like
segue into
it's
a
genuine
question
to me.
because that was
Yeah,
a perfect segue. So like you said, it's genuine. It's this. It's you can critique your like. I like where you were going with that. So, what's
yeah.
your least favorite thing to take pictures of?
I would say the landscape and nature photography just because it's hard. I
Yeah,
mean, my brain doesn't work that way. Um, that's that's really it. My brain just doesn't work for landscape and nature photography. Um, I mean, really, I like taking pictures of everything. It's my brain processes the world better through a camera. Like, I think it's because it helps.
interesting.
I think it helps because it puts blinders on.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, the world is like too big.
Yeah.
I like
No.
there's so much
So
to see and so much to experience that like having being able to break down experiences into visual flashes, I guess,
yeah.
or being able to focus on something inside of a bigger world. I've always taken pictures, so I can't imagine not. So
Yeah, I got two questions that I just like that just popped into my head only because I was expecting you to have like a horror story and you didn't. So I want to ask if you have any photography horror stories, but also, I think, for me, one of the things that I cannot thank you enough for capturing only because it's proof later on in life that I did it and that I did it in such, you know, I don't want to say heroic fashion because that sounds like super vain,
yeah,
but like in such
dramatic.
dramatic, grandiose fashion. I got to ask you, how excited were you that you caught that apex jump that was like almost 4 feet in the air? Because I could not believe that like you just happened to be in the right place at the right time to catch that
Yeah,
that jump.
pretty stinking excited. If I recall correctly, there are some times when I can't, I like genuinely can't believe if I caught something or not, and I will immediately go and like look at it on the screen and just sort of do a little
Yeah,
excitement dance for myself. Um, yeah, that's always really fun. But yeah, I was excited to see that big
yeah.
when
I
it came up.
if for people that don't know roller derby, it's obviously on an oval track. So one of the things that we can do, and I hope more people are trying it because it's not really as
Yeah,
scary as it seems. You just got to pin it to the wall and keep going. But it's you jump the apex, which means you jump the smallest part of the corner. So you jump from inside. Usually, it's the very center of the corner, so you're only jumping maybe 3 feet at the most. In this particular moment, I went for the biggest jump I thought I could land. So it was essentially entering the corner to exiting the corner. So it was honestly probably bigger than most apex jumps would
yeah,
normally be. And because of that, I knew I had to jump really, really high so that and I couldn't slow down. I knew I wasn't slowing down. So that
yeah,
was already going in. I knew that was going to happen. But, when I jumped, I was looking at my teammate. We made eye contact, and he moved over, and we whole way down the straightaway, he knew what was coming. He knew what was happening. He moved over. I was locked eyes with him, and in the picture, you can actually see him looking back at me, but I'm already in the air. So like he gave me enough room to do it, and without that move, I wouldn't have been able to do it. But I knew I had to jump, and in that moment, I'm obviously not thinking about somebody taking a picture of it. I'm just
right,
worried about
right.
like landing it, not breaking something and not breaking
Oh
someone.
yeah,
And then, to see that you caught that picture, it was just like, it made it that much more special simply because
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't, I don't feel like I got cheered for a ton. And I feel like that was one of those moments where like nobody, even the people that don't like me, could deny. So the fact that
It
you
was a
caught that
big deal.
picture, it is
Yeah.
so like they put it in my going away thing on purpose
Yeah.
because it was so important. So I thank you for that. But enough about me and my ego, and now it's inflated and all that stuff. Uh, tell us,
Well,
do you got any
I
photography
always
horror
say
stories?
y'all put on a good show. Y'all put on a very good show for photographing. So,
Good.
um, uh, I do have a horror story for photography, and okay, well, I'll tell the funny one because the sad one is sad. The funny photography horror story is the one where I got food poisoning on the way to shoot
Oh,
Derby in Colorado. JB and Sid and Tish and Manny Petty and Varuk had to take care of me. I think those were yeah, it was just a disaster. Even the, even the woman we, rented the Airbnb with had to help. I don't even know her real
oh,
name. Like, I don't
oh,
even know her real name. And like, yeah, so, that was bad.
that's
But,
on, yeah,
no, there's nothing more horrific than having food poisoning away from home.
yeah,
But if you have to do it, have JB with you. Cause, oh, hell yeah. She is she is as close to a deity as we have on earth, I think. She is just, yeah, she's JB.
yeah. Um, but you know, kind of rolling back into like scripted questions. You've got to be one of the most supportive people I've ever met, and I wonder how you came to be that way, and what is it about a person that gets you, like I'm gonna be that person's cheerleader because like they just like grab my attention. What would you say like is the thing that made you be supportive, and what gets you, on somebody's team?
Um, I think, what makes me a supportive person is going back to my mom and dad. They were, full of limitless support, and even to this day, my dad has passed, but I will sometimes, when I take a picture, because he got me into photography, when I take a picture that I'm really proud of, I'll think of him. Um, but, my mom is still around, and when I do something that I'm proud of, I'll still share it with her. So I think that like having that much support from a very young age, and I realized how blessed I was in that regard. Um, but having that much, support made me realize how important support is.
Yeah.
And some people just never got that,
Hmm.
and so it's not to be all like, oh my gosh, I'm so special. But sometimes there are people who just give off waves of, I, this is going to sound like patronizing and stuff, but there are just some people who you can tell that you can make a difference in their life,
Hmm. Yeah.
and that maybe they need a cheerleader. Like,
Yeah.
I,
So you,
I think one of the positives of being an introvert, and I was talking about this with another introvert friend of ours. We're we don't really socialize. We do recon.
hmm
We do
yeah,
reconnaissance
I like that. I like
into
that.
humanity. Like, we are the greatest observers of human nature, and um, and so I think that you can tell when there are people whose life you can be a
Yeah.
part of and be a positive influence on. I don't know. That sounds really patronizing, but I just think also sometimes it's just fun, to get to
Yeah.
be around other creatives or other, people who perhaps feel life as deeply as I do. I think that that's another thing I, that like I'm a super sensitive person, like emotionally. And
Hmm.
I think that sometimes I can pick up when people can need sort of
Absolutely.
a
I
boost.
agree with that.
Yeah.
That
So, yeah.
that's one of those things that I know for me, I do have that like I don't want to say like empathy specifically because that makes it sound like it's like a sad thing, but like that, that thing where you look like you need, that nudge in the right direction. So I'm very much going to come over and, like give you that little bit of nudge. And, one of the things that I remember distinctly was, as your coach one day, I
Yeah,
I had you on track and I don't remember what drill we were running, but you had
I was probably complaining about it
no, you weren't. I promise you weren't. You when you came off and you went back on and you kind of had a defeated look on your face, and I think it was not like you couldn't do it, but just like, and in general, like you were trying, and everything that you were trying was this, and you're, I don't want to say worked up, but you you did this thing where, you know every skater specifically has a like a face, and I like to say it's your gears turning or not. And
yeah.
your gears were turning, but not in a direction I needed them to. So what I did was I came over and I said, what do you got if you aren't close by? What do you have if you're this? And you kind of looked at me for a second because I made you think, and I was like, you got a voice, and I know there's not another person louder than you out here. And in that moment, you looked me dead in my face, and it was like, all the lights turned back on. And it, to me,
Honest, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
it's just, that it's that thing, like you said, knowing that, like, that little nudge of encouragement here, that little nudge of encouragement there, and knowing that, like, they they might actually respond to it, rather than like I can go over and talk to you, and no matter what I say, you're going to be, you know like wet blanket.
Yeah, yeah. And that's always sort of, yeah. I guess I mean, you pegged it. That's it. It's like being able to sort of, and Geo says, like see a need, fill a need.
Hmm.
And so if you can, everyone has little holes where they need a little something.
Yeah.
And if it has to be external, some of us have to buy our serotonin or
Hmm.
whatever. you know,
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
you have to borrow a little bit of self confidence from someone else, I
Yeah.
mean that's how the world works. You know?
I would agree with that. And, that's what we're about here is, talking to people that are supportive, but also talking about people that are supporting for the right reasons, not just like, a tit for tat or transactional or anything like that. Like, it's genuine support. And, you were talking about your parents, and you kind of mentioned your dad got you into photography. And that's something I've always wanted to ask you, is like, why photography? Like, you're so talented at like a lot of things that I've seen you do, and I'm glad that you picked up a camera, but what was it
Yeah.
about photography that just made you go like, that's my thing, that's it, that's what I want?
Well, definitely my dad had always done it, and in fact, growing up, he even had a dark room, his own dark room downstairs, because that's how into it he was. And he would like package his own film and like all sorts of weird stuff because it was less expensive than
Hmm.
buying stuff. He also made his own bullets for the same reason.
I love
but
it.
yeah, so he was always the photographer in the family. Only even once he had kids, he didn't take pictures of us, not really. And so when we were on family vacation, he wouldn't take pictures of us in all of these places. And my mom got really mad at him and told him, fine, that's okay. You can do your thing and do like your architecture photography or whatever, but you got to teach someone to use a camera so that we can get pictures of the kids. And so, and so basically that's why I learned how to do photography is because
That's
like,
amazing.
yeah, because dad was like, okay, fine. But what's hilarious is that later he became like one of my biggest cheerleaders with photography. And um, like when I was trying to get to learn to use a new camera, he noticed that I was frustrated because I was trying to take pictures of the cats. And, cats
Yeah.
don't don't care what humans want to do. So he got up from watching TV and went out to work on some woodworking project that he was not working on and that he did not care about. But he went to do it just so that I could have something to take pictures of. And
Oh,
so, yeah. And so that's just that type of thing, you know. And so
yeah.
that's how I got into photography. And again, I love the cameras now that phones have cameras
Hmm.
that are, you know,
Yeah.
snazzy.
Yeah.
But
That's good. I love that story, and I'm glad like I said, I've always wanted to know because you're so
yeah,
good at it, and like again, being married to a person that is a photographer and does photography, our styles are really different, and it's always annoying because, like I said, when we go shoot weddings, I do try and take some pictures in her style, and because her style is different, trying to emulate her style is really weird. And one of the things that I love about your photography is, like you said, you do try and capture those, like the emotion. There's always something going on in your
yeah,
pictures, and I love that. I know, like for my photography, like it was always for the social media thing, so I always tried to capture the speed. So there's a lot of blur in my
yeah,
images, there's a lot of foreground activity, but the background is still active in some sort of way, just
yeah.
because it's got to engage you throughout.
Well, and
And
that's another thing that is interesting. Like mentioning that you wanted to show the speed, and so the showing the drag on purpose. That's another thing I think with art, like along with or creativity and creative products, in addition to being like genuine. Um, oh heck, I lost my entire train of thought now. Oh, if you're doing something with intent,
yeah. Uh-huh.
like Jackson Pollock, it's easy for us to say, oh, I could just throw something on a whatever, but he did it with intent, and even abstract stuff that I don't maybe understand. In that case, I think it's like the creation of the artwork was just as important as the final product. Like, how did he choose what colors to use or
Hmm.
where to put it and things like that? And, you know, it's with intent. I mean, and I'm sure that like someone could just throw stuff on a thing and it would look similar, but I don't know that it would. I have not studied Jackson Pollock, but, you know,
Yeah.
but I think that there is something with intent. And even if I'm doing something abstract, like had a, I had a, I was wanting, like last year sometime, wanting to get into acrylic painting. But again, I didn't want to waste a canvas. And so I just kept not doing anything and kept not doing anything. And so finally I was sick of myself. And so I just splatted a bunch of paint on a canvas and started mushing stuff around. But then I got to the point where I wanted to start balancing out the colors and balancing out the swoops.
Nice. Yeah.
And so to me, that's where the creative part came in, was like the doing things with intent
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
making it look balanced the way I wanted it to be balanced. And it might not look good to anybody else. It might not look balanced to anyone else, but you know, the act of creating it was as important as the final product because it was all a part of breaking through a wall that I had.
Yeah.
And
You mean you
so
did that
it was,
age old artist thing where you just got started.
yeah, yeah. And that's, I mean, and that's the thing, like as a writer, like you
Yeah.
just put what, sometimes you just have to slog through it and put one word after the other. And but suddenly then you've got like a sentence and then you've got a
Hmm.
paragraph and then you've got a
Yeah.
book, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, is like anybody out there, if you have a dream about anything, it doesn't have to be creative, just anything in general, like just get started. And that's what it is. Except for serial killing. Don't just get started on serial killing.
Oh
That's not a
yeah,
thing we need.
no,
Um,
no, no. Yeah,
but
we are strictly no serial killer here.
yeah. You know how I operate as far as getting people to believe in themselves, and what are some of the things that like you would tell somebody who's having a hard time believing in themselves, like just a couple of like Kate-isms, as we can call them.
Oh gosh. Um, that's hard. Uh, you can do it. You're no, that you can
Put
do
your
it.
back into it.
Yeah. Uh, every single person. I don't know. You're awesome. That's my old chestnut. You're
Yeah,
awesome. You're
yeah.
amazing.
But you say it with such
Um,
conviction that I know you mean it, and it always
well,
hits like, okay, yeah, I am awesome.
because
Thank you.
I mean, because everyone is. I mean, even people who suck, someone thinks they're awesome. I mean, so I mean, empirically, or I don't even know if I'm using that word correctly, but by that virtue, everyone is awesome. Because
Yeah,
everyone, someone likes them. Everyone is awesome to someone. But genuinely, I don't know. I try to meet people assuming that I try to see the best version of every person I meet, if that makes sense.
yeah, absolutely,
Like,
it does.
like, and I think I'm pretty lucky in that regard to have had a life where I can just meet people and assume that they're amazing and awesome and assume that, you know, that they're spectacular because it makes it very easy to be a cheerleader for people if you don't think that they're shitheels. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and I mean, most of the people I know are not shitheels, so it's easy to be a cheerleader for them. But
yeah,
no, I don't know. Really, it depends on what people need because sometimes people need just a head pat.
yeah.
Even.
So
um,
I was hoping that this was going to be a harder question for you to answer because I would venture to guess you tailor everything you say supportively for the person because it is genuine. It is
yeah.
because that person needs that message in that moment and you can just see it. And I don't know if that comes from having looked at them through a lens and seen what their emotion is when they don't think anybody's watching and they don't think anybody is like seeing them, and you're able to be like, oh, I know what that face is because that's the face they make when they get hit really hard, and they're not getting hit really hard, so they must be really sad or they must be really emotional.
I do think that I mean, I definitely do tailor what I say to who the people are and like what's going on, which, I mean, it sounds silly to say, but I do. And it is genuine, whatever I am saying to anyone, because I have no poker face. Like, I cannot lie.
Yeah,
And maybe that's another reason I really, really like dig genuine
yeah,
things and like stress genuine stuff because, oh, I can't lie. But, no, I think it goes that sort of the being able to tailor responses sort of goes back to introverts. You know, we don't not socializing but doing recon. I
hmm
mean, you sort of are able, especially in such a tight knit community like Derby. You're able to pick up on personalities and vibes and what people might need.
hmm
Because
yeah,
I definitely think that the support isn't just like it should be something that isn't generic. It,
correct.
I mean, if you're going to give support to someone, it should be genuine. And I think that people can tell when there's just sort of a golf clap,
hmm
yay, good for you. And when people can tell that someone genuinely cares about how their advice or support or encouragement is going to come off and how it's going to impact the person receiving it, you
Yeah,
know?
I would agree with that. I think that that's
Yeah.
pretty like pretty genuine approach to it. Is it has to mean
Yeah.
something. It has to be in the moment. I couldn't rehearse it because if I rehearsed it then it wouldn't be genuine, like, and I'm very
Right.
much that way, so I can understand it. Like, I make the joke with, like, people that are on here where I'm reactive and I'm off the cuff. Like, I have questions written down but I kind of see where the conversation's going and
Yeah.
tailor it from there, because there's a vibe and I want it to be genuine. I want the conversation to be genuine because I'm a genuine individual. But more
Yeah.
importantly, like, if I was going to give support, it would have to be genuine. And, for you, very much sounds like that's what you're saying, is that it would just have to be genuine.
Yeah. It just, for me and for the person, because, yeah, it just, I think I I think the experience should be good for both people. Like you can also tell when people are having to instruct you or when they've been like when they don't want to help you necessarily or if
Hmm.
they're there not for you but for some third party you don't even know. Like
Yeah.
it's just
And that's,
easier if everyone's
yeah.
genuine.
Yeah. No, nobody needs that. But what we do
Mm-mm.
need is to get to the this or that. So I got some
Uh-oh.
this or that
This
questions
is
for
going
you.
to
You
be
ready?
fun. Yes, I am.
All right. This first one is from Cherry. I asked her if she had any questions, and Cherry said, ask her taking photos or editing photos.
I really like editing photos. Uh, I mean, I like both, obviously, but I've often wondered, like, what would happen, like, if Keith and I traded photos. For people listening, Keith is the other primary derby photographer. I've often wondered what would happen if we swapped photos and edited each other's photos.
Ooh,
Like,
do it.
I wonder if I would see something different in his photos. Like, maybe he is deleting like masterpieces, you know? Like I would love for us to look
Interesting.
at each other's photos
Yeah,
and
that
see
sounds like a
because
good experiment.
because we each have such a different voice, and we
Yeah.
shoot different things. We shoot differently. Like it's
Yeah.
very rare that we will have a similar picture.
Yeah.
Like it's maybe happened 3 times in like the last 10 years.
I find
Uh,
that interesting, and that's something that you're going to have to do. But that goes in line with this next this or that question: creating beautiful art or watching someone else learn to create beautiful art.
creating because I would get jealous watching someone else.
I like that answer.
Well,
I like
especially
that one.
if it's something that I wanted to be good at, like I'm, like I can be a nice person, but I can also be like a super, super, super bitchy person. And like, especially if we were trying to do the same thing and it was the first time for both of us and they were better at me, better than I was,
Yeah, I could see
I
that.
would be unhappy. But
All right,
yeah, no.
this last one. This is for all your fans, Uniscorn. Uh, being on that track and hearing all those cheers, or feeling all that support.
Feeling the support, so hearing it. I am discovering what all you talk about jamnesia.
Yeah.
I You kind of get your blinders on and stuff like that, but also I think that the feeling it is easier because the hearing it would make me realize that people are there
Yeah.
and that like feeling it is like an invisible hug, but hearing it is like an actual alarm, like a
Yeah.
siren or something. I don't know.
I like that.
Yeah.
We support you and we love you. I am rocking a Public Enemies hat specifically for you. You're the first person that is like one of my pubs
Oh
on
yeah.
here, and I definitely am excited to have been a part of your journey, but also excited to see how far your journey has taken you. And I can't wait to continue to see how far it goes.
Well,
And I'm
honest to
like,
goodness,
I just can't.
your story about you still have a voice that has helped me so much because I am a slower skater, and even when I do get out, you know, or whatever, whenever I wind up at the back of the pack, though, no matter what, I can still shout where people are, and that has actually helped in some scenarios where, like, sure, I got passed by the jammer, but then I had the best view of where the jammer was going to be, and so I was able to yell,
Do you know what that
and
Jedi
so,
mind trick is? Did you ever have you figured it out yet? So what it
uh-uh,
is you're learning the game because you're calling out what you see. So you might not be able to be next to that thing, but you can call it out. So you are looking for the game. You are looking at how to read the track and you're saying it out loud, so it's committing it to memory. That's what that Jedi mind trick was. So you
that's
learned
cool.
every time you call out what it is, the jammer's going outside. You learn, okay, when the jammer starts to move like that, they're going to the outside, and you learn where you could have been, where that other person should be, and you see that same move again, or you see that same
Yeah.
and from the back of the pack, I used to hang out back there a lot, and people always wondered what I was doing. That's what I was doing, is I was watching the minutia and the fluidness of how everything was moving to plan that move. And then when I would get through, that's why I would get through so easy, because for the first three corners, I watched everything move. So I
Yeah.
knew going around the next time where it should shift and fold. And that's what you're learning without even thinking
Well,
about it.
and I do think that like the derby photography is going to help with that. Like eventually,
Absolutely.
the 10 years of watching derby so closely is going to at some point I'm going to be able to make my body do stuff that I can see, and so it's going to be awesome. And
I
I
love it.
can't wait. I can't wait for you and Cherry to be there for it.
Good. I
It's
am
going to be
so
fun.
excited to watch that journey. Like I said,
Cool.
I am super excited to have gotten a chance to talk to you and learn about the where the photography came from. Learn about a little bit about the person behind the lens, because like I know you as Uniscorn and I know you as Kate, the amazing photographer, but like I I don't, there's so much more to you. For the people listening, you have to check out her photography. So where can they check out that photography?
Right now, it is a Facebook page at Zesty Unicorn Photography, um, and that's really the biggest presence, and that's where you can check out portraits and previous derby photography and all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah. And we'll link that in the show notes below. So you can,
Woohoo.
you can go check that out, show her some love. Like I said, amazing photography. The derby photography is good, but like there, your portraits of, people and, I- I am going to shout it out because I love my wife and I think she's hot. She got some like, you know, fun pictures taken in one of my hockey jerseys and in a Jason Voorhees mask. And I thought that was like really cool. And I was super excited that like somebody she was comfortable with got to help do that,
Oh
because
yeah.
otherwise she wouldn't have been able to do it. So I want to thank you
Yeah.
personally for that, because that was amazing.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, y'all are just the best, and you know that, right?
Yeah. We have that picture
Like,
you got for, or you had made for us, or gave us for, I don't, was it Christmas? I think that's above our
I
call,
think there
or
was
above.
a Halloween skeleton gift exchange. There was a Halloween
Yeah.
gift exchange or
Yeah.
something.
We
Yeah.
yeah, we that's above our kitchen table. So we
Oh
love it.
gosh.
We look at it all the time. We get
Awesome.
asked about it all the time. So
Seriously?
yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That
Um
that makes me happy.
Good. Well, like again, thank you for being here. I
Oh
appreciate it.
gosh, thank you for having me.
You keep doing all the fun things on track and capturing all the crazy things with the camera. Um, like I said, I can't thank you enough. Thanks for being here.
Oh gosh. Have a great evening and kiss all your mammals.
I will. I will.
Okay.
The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, every day is a class. Go learn something.